I think my approach every time was minimal studying, self-studying, not really taking any classes or courses, and every time I failed, it just put my confidence down a little bit
Mm.
more, and self-doubt came in a little bit higher each time, and I just started second guessing my answers every time I would take the test, and I got nervous, and then I just developed test anxiety, and that's something I'd never experienced before.
Mm.
Practice exams. That really helped me. That was the one thing I did different this time than all the other times I studied, is taking multiple practice exams and realizing what type of test taker I was.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Genie interview series where I interview Genie Prep community members who've recently passed the FE exam. Today, I'm talking to Jasmine, a 2016 graduate. Jasmine took her first FE exam while she was still in college, but unfortunately, she didn't pass it. Her initial approach was to study on her own, which did not bring the success that she was hoping for. So, after 9 attempts with different disciplines and other FE prep courses, she found herself losing confidence, struggling with test anxiety, and having trouble, especially with subjects like statics and structures. Now, faced with these challenges, Jasmine decided to change her approach. She joined our Genie Prep course, she started mimicking the exam environment, and she became more flexible with her schedule, but always staying consistent. So, with these new tools and techniques, Jasmine was able to turn her FE exam journey into a more enjoyable experience. So, if you're currently trying to pass your FE exam and you are struggling with managing your study time or maintaining a consistent schedule, then keep watching because Jasmine shares some excellent insights on how she successfully managed her study time and passed her FE exam. So let's dive in. Jasmine, why did you decide to take your FE exam?
So I decided to take it because I wanted to advance my in my career. I realized even though I don't necessarily want to use my PE stamp or be in design, but I needed that PE license in order to move up out of my position to apply for like a senior position or a supervisory position. So if I wanted to advance to the next step in the future, I needed the PE license, not necessarily for the fact of using the stamp for like design structural purposes, but so that is why I took the FE so I could get my PE license.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Just to excel in your career, just to get
Mm.
into that higher position or promotion and raise, right? The
Yeah.
PE helps a lot, right? Um,
Yes.
Okay, so I know we talked a couple times, and I remember vaguely you told me that you took the FE exam about 12 times around there, right? I
Yeah.
think
I think it was like 8 or so. Yeah, I think like yeah,
it was
somewhere
okay.
around there. It was
Okay.
pretty
Okay, because I remember also you were like I stopped keeping count after like the 7th time or something like that.
yeah, I think it was like 8 or 9 and I was just like, "I'm done." I took a pause after that and then I found your course.
Yeah. Okay. So before we dive into your last attempt and before you found our courses, can you tell us a little bit about your FE journey before that? When was the first time you started studying for it? I know you graduated in 2016. So just tell us a little bit about that. When did you start studying for it? And just briefly tell us about what was that like? What was your journey like?
Honestly, so the first time I actually took it was without studying, and that was while I was in college because everyone was telling me, "Hey, try it, take it, try it," while you're in school, while you're taking the classes, while everything's fresh, just to get a feel for it. You most likely won't pass the first time, especially without studying, and you're still taking those courses. I took the general. I didn't pass. There were some courses on there that I hadn't taken yet, so I expected that, but I got a feel for what the exam was like. After that, I think after I graduated, I tried taking it, and I tried taking it with very minimal studying. I think my approach every time was minimal studying, self-studying, not really taking any classes or courses because in school I was very much self-sufficient, a self-studier. Um, and I didn't take much for me. Like, I was pretty good at test taking, and in college, like, I didn't struggle, so I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. I just approached it the same way, but I was very wrong every time I kept failing, and every time I failed, it just put my confidence down a little bit more, and self-doubt came in a little bit higher each time, and I just started second guessing my answers every time I would take the test, and it just I got nervous, and then I just developed test anxiety, and that's something I'd never experienced before. 'Cause school was very easy for me, and taking was very easy for me. I didn't struggle too much, you know. Um, so that was my journey, and then I did try the School of PE. That was the one course I did try, but it just didn't work for me. I didn't like the structure of it. It was very long, lengthy, hard to follow, uh, and they didn't really. I guess because at this point I was so far out of school, conceptually I started forgetting things. So it's like it didn't really go into the conceptual part of things. Um, and that didn't. It's like I had to relearn everything, but it wasn't teaching me the way I wanted. So.
Okay. I have a question. So the first one you took is other disciplines. Did you take other disciplines a lot after that? When did you switch to Ziffel, or did you
Uh,
keep going back and forth?
I kinda went back and forth. The
Okay.
first, like, 2 or 3 times I tried other disciplines, and I was like, this is not working, let me try civil. Because I did at this point, I had done all my civil classes too, right?
Right, right.
But civil was super tough, at that time because now I'm already out of school. So I'm forgetting those things that I learned in school. Maybe had I taken it right after college, I finished college and graduated, might have been a different story.
Mm, yeah.
Um And then, yeah, so I tried civil like 2 times or something, then I switched back to other disciplines because
Mm,
we're like, it has a higher pass rate, less to worry about. And I was really bad at structures. That's the one class I struggled in. Um, and steel, and concrete design, those classes were more electives, and all my electives in college were transportation based. I didn't take any electives outside of
mm,
that. So I only had experience in just my standard one structures class and lab, and that was it. So I didn't really understand conceptually structures. I didn't get into depth with it because I always wanted to do transportation. So I geared my college classes majority towards that. So Um, yeah, so I struggled a lot with the civil section because every time my luck, I had a lot of structures questions. And with that, I realized my weakness was statics or mechanics, like the foundation for structures, not necessarily structures itself. So, and I realized that when I took your course, and then I was like,
mm.
"Oh, now this makes more sense."
Yeah, yeah, they're very related. Why I always tell you guys, like, it's very important. That's why I have a course literally just for statics, because if you
Yeah,
miss those concepts, you are gonna struggle in so many different subjects later on.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very important point. Now, when you were self-studying, you said I was self-studying. What type of study material were we using?
So I use that the Michael Lindbergh's book, The
Okay.
Practice Problems, that really fat yellow book. And yeah, there was just a lot in there, but I just feel like it was outdated. It just didn't represent the test as well as I would have hoped for. Not only that, um, the NCES practice exam that they offer, that was okay, but I don't think it's a very good reflection or full picture of the actual test. So,
Okay. And then when you were self-studying, did you have a schedule? Did you have a routine? were you able to study every day and stay consistent? Because when you were talking about college experience, it seems like you didn't struggle with that. You were, you studied by yourself and you did really well in your classes. Did you struggle with that after you graduated, or you were showing up, you were studying, but you were just not seeing the result that you wanted to see?
I would say not as consistently as I should have, probably.
Mm, okay.
Um, just because work. I also had work, and I worked in private at the time, and I was working in construction. You have odd hours or you have long days. So there were some days where I was just too tired at 12-hour days, and it's like you come home and you're like, nope, not doing it today.
Yeah.
So I wasn't as consistent as I should have been. If I'm being 100% honest with myself, like probably could have done more. Maybe I would have passed sooner. But I also feel like because of the self-studying, I think I realized that I guess that's why I did well in school, because there was a structure, there was a schedule, there was a plan, there was a professor, or there were assignments due, or whatever the case was that held me accountable. With self-studying, you have to hold yourself accountable. And even with your course, I still had to hold myself accountable, but there was structure there. There was a schedule, there was a plan, and there were check-ins. So I think that having that format was very similar to school, and that helped a lot with my studying.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, earlier you talked a little bit about like how your confidence went down each time you had failed the FE, and then your self-doubt as well. Um,
Mhm.
how did you overcome that? And w- what didn't let you like give up? I mean, after taking it so many times, right? What kept you going and not going like, I just give up. I'm never going to take this test again. Like, what made you to keep going till you passed it?
Well, because I saw like a lot of all of my close friends that I made during school, like, and we still keep in touch. We're still friends and stuff. Like, I had a good circle of friends. They all got their FEs and PEs, and I see them moving up, and it's like, okay, I this is part of my goal. Like, I want to do this. Like, so I can't stop now. Like, otherwise I'm gonna be stuck in the same position forever, and I don't want that. Or
Yeah.
I could have gone into private without a PE license and still promoted and moved up, but I work for the state, and I like the hours and I like the benefits, but I can't move up without the PE.
Yeah.
I don't wanna go. I've done the private sector and I've worked the long, crazy hours. I want a more stable lifestyle now. I got married last year. We're family planning now next year. So I want a more stable, secure schedule. And I'm not gonna get that with private. We've been there, done that. So with state, I there's no way to move up without that license. So I was like, I need that license. So I need to, pass this FE.
Yeah, so that was your big motivation right there.
Yeah.
So you had that strong, that's what we call it, like strong why. You had that strong why I want to take this exam and why I need to keep going until I pass it. Now, in your last attempt, how did you overcome that confidence? And then also you talked about test anxiety as well. You started to develop test anxiety each time you failed it,
Mhm.
which is very common because now you just, you're afraid to fail this test, right? And so that creates this anxiety around the whole test experience. So how did you gain confidence back? And then how did you overcome that test anxiety?
So, yeah, so I did get test anxiety, because like I said, in school, I don't think I ever failed a single test. I mean, the worst I
Mm,
got was a C on a test, and that was like chemistry. So it was like a subject I wasn't needing in my career really. It was just one of those classes I just absolutely couldn't stand. Um, so for me, failing was not an option, and seeing myself fail every time, knowing I was such a good student in school and I succeeded all the time, like that was a big hit on probably my ego too a little bit. Like,
Mm.
no, how is this possible? So when I took it this last time and passed, I'll be honest, I was a little surprised considering like I think 2 weeks before the exam I got sick. So like a week of that 2 weeks prior to the exam, I was just resting in bed, not even studying. And I'm like, this is the most critical last 2 weeks. I got to do all my reviewing and studying. So honestly, a few days, I think I took a few days off before the exam from work. I took like 3 days off just to focus on practice exams, test management, and that really helped um give
Mm.
me an idea of where I'm at too and how I could better myself during the test. And I think one big thing was when I started feeling myself worry or start spiraling or second guessing, I had to like take a step back during the test, calm down, and be like, okay, don't go there. Skip the problem, move on. Because I have this tendency of I have to answer every problem. I can't let it go. Like I have to finish it and then move on to the next problem. But I had to realize, okay, skip it, move on, come back later. Don't waste time. And that's what I realized. That helped me because I do have that tendency of like, I have to solve every problem. Like I don't like skipping. Like I have to solve every problem. So that was something that I had to learn to like skip, flag, come back to it later, 5 time.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people actually can relate to that. And I think a lot of people struggle with that too. I've heard it from a couple students where like when they take the exam before, they would just like stay stuck in a problem and then they wouldn't finish their exam on time. And then also they would start like spiraling. Oh man, I'm not gonna get this, like I'm not gonna pass this exam, like I'm stuck in this, you know what I mean? And then you just go into the spiral, and then the whole test, like you end up doing poorly because of that problem where you got stuck on, where it's like, no, you have 110 questions where it's like you have so many chances where you can get the question correct. And it's very important to remind yourself to like move on. And it's really important what you mentioned, like during the exam you had to actually literally force yourself to go, no, I'm not going to stay in this problem, I'm going to move on to the next one, because that's
Mhm.
how powerful it is. Like, right, it's a habit. You're like, I have to finish it first, and you had to stop yourself from doing that.
Mhm.
um that makes sense. Okay, so a lot of the preparation that you did a couple days before your exam kind of helped you around that test anxiety and helped you to feel more at ease with the exam going in. Um, Now, let's talk a little bit about your schedule on your last attempt. How many months were you studying, and then how many hours did you study per week? And were you consistent, or was it just depends?
For I want to say 80% of it was consistent. I
Okay.
would say 20% was kind of up and down. Um, so as you know, I got your course last year in August. I actually started studying in August, kind of like end of August then honestly, I was good for the first month of August. Then I went out of town for a wedding. I was gone for a week, came back. It was so hard to get back into it. And it's like, then I had my cousin's wedding a month later. And it's like during that month of September, there was a lot of running around, helping him, getting things prepared. He had his engagement 2 weeks before the wedding. We had that. And then we had his wedding, and our weddings last a week long.
Oh
There's like
wow.
multiple events. So
Damn.
very time consuming. And then I got sick after his wedding, and I was in bed for like 2 weeks, like because I caught COVID, because so many people at a wedding, it was bound to
Right.
happen. So I got sick, and then yeah, and then winter came, and it was just like I just got into this funk. Like I had lost the studying for so long. It was hard to come back into it.
Mm.
And then I think in January, towards mid January is when I was like, okay, I really need to get back on this. So I spent the last 2 weeks of January reviewing, studying all the stuff that I did in the August, just kind of refresh, which was all the easy stuff for me, like math, statistics, the basics, ethics, all the minor subjects that I didn't really need to like totally be like um studying hardcore on, because it was just a refresher for me. And I got all those problems correct. So I was like, okay, this is just more of like a, let me just go through it one time just to refresh. And then I spent February, March, and then April studying for most of it. So I think all of February and the beginning portion of March, I studied and I finished the morning section. That's about a month and a week. And then I had a small trip to San Diego for my best friend's bachelorette trip, came back, and then I started the afternoon classes. So if I want to say I spent like a good month and a half, almost 2 months on, month and a half on the afternoon part. I got through those. Um, and then I spent the last like week doing review tests and things of that sort. I did do a review test after the morning section before my exam. And or I mean before I went to San Diego, and I got an idea of where I was after the morning portion of how well I did. So I got about 50% on it. Um but that was not really studying the afternoon yet. So seeing I was there at a almost 50%, 40, 50%, I was like, okay, I'm kind of in a good spot right now. I think gauging myself with that. So then when I came back, that gave me a little bit of confidence too when I came back and I started doing the afternoon stuff.
Mm.
That helped a lot, you know, gave me like a little bit of hope. Um the week so the few days before the test, like about 5 days before, I started practice exams and time management, because that was my problem. I realized I was taking the practice exams like the real exams. So putting a timer for the 5 hours and 25 minutes, taking that optional 25-minute break, pausing the timer, doing it exactly the same. So I think the first two times I took the practice exam, kind of ran out of time where I was guessing on the last like 20 problems because I didn't have enough time, right? So then the third time I took the practice exam, this time I was like, okay, I need to skip, because I realized that's what I was doing. I was trying to solve every problem, but I was like, okay, skip it, come back, skip it, come back, skip it, come back. And that really did help. Um, but when I did take it like 2 days before my actual exam, I was scoring about like 50-ish somewhere percent. So I mean, it was still better than the first attempt I took, but I was hoping like by the time I finished the afternoon, I would have done better, like 60, 70%, but it wasn't that. And it was like, and then I would go back and review my answers, and it's like, oh, I had the right answer the first time. Why did I cross it out and put a different one? Like guessing, like second guessing myself,
Mm.
And and then some of the problems, it was like such easy, stupid mistakes, like in the calculator, I punched it wrong or pressed the wrong thing, like, because when you're rushing through or, doing it quickly, you kind of like, you don't realize it. Or like, for example, for econ, when you're looking at the interest tables, it's like, oh, I pulled the wrong number. It was the number below it, but those numbers are so tiny and it's like you're going so fast, you don't realize it. And I grabbed the wrong number. It's like I set up the whole problem correctly. I would have had the right answer. But just little things like that I was realizing, making small mistakes, like very minor mistakes on problems that I clearly knew how to do. So it was that too.
Yeah, and that must have boosted your confidence a little bit too, because like you would have seen the low score, and then you go to the answers, and you're like, oh man, like I had everything the right way. It's just like I did these silly mistakes, so it's like it's kind of you boost your confidence a little bit. You're like, okay, well, I got technically you kind of got them right. I just gotta
Yeah.
watch out for these silly mistakes during the exam, right?
Yeah.
Um, And I think that's why it's really important to take these practice exams, because you learn so much from them. You learn
Mhm.
from your mistakes, because you don't want to do those mistakes during the exam, right? And that's
Yeah.
why I really ask you guys, I encourage you to take as many practice exams as you can, so that you remember these things. I'm sure during your actual exam you were probably double checking the number, making sure you got the right number, making sure you were plugging the right numbers in your calculator. You were watching out for those silly mistakes that you did, and then you avoided them during your exam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why this it's really important. Okay. So
I don't think I answered your question though about how many hours a week I studied. I
oh
like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
So about so like Monday through Thursday, I would try to get at least 2 to 3 hours in the evenings,
Okay.
2 to 3 hours roughly. And I would set like I knew what subject I was on, and I knew how many videos there were, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna get through problems 1 through 15, like how in tonight, and then tomorrow I'm
Mm,
going to do 15 through 30 or whatever it is, and then kind of keep myself on a accountable. And then sometimes I'd get through all whatever let's say it was 15 problems, like great, in a 3 hour time span. Sometimes I only got through half of that because it took me longer to understand, or it was harder to split up my studying in 2 days, like, okay, finish the second half tomorrow, then move on. So that's how I did it. And then on
mm,
Fridays, I have every other Friday off. So on my off Fridays, I would spend about 4 to 5 hours, like treating it like
mm,
a weekend. And then, especially if my weekends were busy, which a lot of times they are with family stuff, so I would have to gauge accordingly. So then I would put more on that Friday, so to make up for not doing as much on the weekend. But I would also aim for 3 to 5 hours Saturday and Sunday, but I always didn't get that. But then I made up for it by doing more during the week because I was more available.
mm.
So I kind of had to balance it out. So my schedule wasn't completely consistent, but I did try to study every day. There were some days where I was just like, nope, not today. I'm taking a day off. I don't have the mental capacity.
Mhm.
I had a long work day. My head hurts. Not even going to try it, because I did in the beginning was trying to force it where I was studying every single day, whether I had a good day or not. And those days that I had long days for work, I realized I wasn't retaining what I was it wasn't working. So I was like, I just got to take a step back. If I don't have it, the time or the energy, don't force it also. So, and that helped, like taking those breaks, or realizing, or, acknowledging what my mind is telling me, like, hey, you can't do this today. Take a step back, come back to it tomorrow. And also, even when I was studying like during those 5 hour times, I wouldn't study the full 5 hours. Obviously, I had to take a break in between. And I realized when I would need to take a break is when I was getting every single problem in a row wrong, like three
Mm.
or four or five. And I'm like, why am I getting these wrong? Took a break, came back to it, redid them. And it's like, okay, I got these, like, I'm getting it. It's because I was getting tired and I just needed that break for like 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And then I'd come back, and then I breeze right through it. So just knowing when I needed those breaks in between, and not like overexerting myself and trying to study the whole 5 or 6 hours during those long periods helped.
Yeah, you were very aware of what was going on with your mind, and
Yeah.
then you adjusted a lot. Like
Mhm.
in your last attempt, you adjusted as you were studying. You would learn more about, okay, what do I need? How does my brain work?
Yeah.
What's gonna work for me, right? And that's really it. I think that's a lot of people we focus sometimes so much on what other people are doing, and we
Mhm.
don't realize that like we're all different and we need to figure out our own methods and our own study habits, right?
Mhm.
And so, and yeah, I think that's a really big one. And I'm glad that you were able to like listen to your body and just be like, nope, today's not going to happen, because like, probably the next day you felt more recharged, and you were able to retain more information, versus if you forced it the day before, you're going to feel tired that day and also the next day, and you might not, you know what I mean? And it's just like, so, and then you start losing motivation. So I also noticed this too, when I push to a day where it's like I'm not feeling it and I push through that day and I just keep working or keep doing problems, I realized that like afterwards, like I really get tired and just like my brain stops working. Versus if I just take that day off, the next day I'm ready to go, right? But you,
Mhm.
when you push it and you force it, you feel like you're off for like a couple days before you start to recover, right? And so
Yeah.
that's why it's really important to listen to our bodies and take breaks when we need to. um it was interesting because it's like, yes, you didn't have a consistent schedule, but at the same time, you had some sort of a structure and then you made it work based on your own schedule and based on the week, right? Some weekends might be busy, so I just got to adjust. And I think having that flexibility is really important, because if you're
Mm.
so rigid and it's like, no, I got to show up, I got to study, I got to keep, that's how you're going to burn out and not do well or retain information as much. So I really liked your approach. It's very interesting. It's different than what some people might do, but it works, right? You were retaining information, you didn't burn out, you were studying, you were learning. Were you enjoying the process?
I did enjoy it. I think having that flexibility helped me enjoy because,
Yeah.
like, I think in the beginning when I started in August last year, I was very, okay, it has to be, this is the schedule, this is the time block. I had to like, and I think in that month and then taking that break to go to that wedding in Seattle, I realized like I was so rigid during that month and I kind of had like a semi burnout because then when I went
Mm,
on vacation and then I came back, it's like I didn't want to go back to it. And it's like, oh, I have this to do, I had that to do. It kind of just pushed it off where I'd study an hour here and or there, and it became less and less consistent, and it kind of just I fell off. And then I came
mm,
back onto it in January. And the other thing was also when I came back to it in January, that's when I scheduled my exam. Like at end of January, beginning of February, that's when I scheduled my exam because I was like, I need a test date. Without a test date and a goal to reach to, I'm not going to stay consistent.
mm,
Which is why after I passed the FE, I immediately did all the stuff that I needed to sign up for the PE. And I scheduled the test.
mm.
And I have a schedule and I have a study plan and I am studying now. I took a few weeks off, because I took
Yeah.
the FE May 8th and I just started studying this week for the PE. So I took a little bit of a break, but during that break, I applied for my EIT certificate with the boards. I um, purchased all of the study material I needed for the PE, gathered everything, all my reference manuals, purchased the course, EET Transpo course for the afternoon portion. So I did all of that, and I am now studying for the afternoon portion right now. So my plan is to get through that and then revisit your videos for the morning portion afterwards, and then hopefully take the PE in August and mid-August and pass. But I knew if I took too long of a break in between, I would fall off like I did last year. So I was like, I can't do that. I'm kind of on this high, like I passed it. I can do this. I have this confidence and I'm kind of already in that study mode. So I just want to keep that flow going. But I did give myself those few weeks off to kind of get my things together, get my thoughts together, get prepared for this next part.
Yeah, that's really smart. And I really like because a lot of people would end up doing is that they would schedule the exam without really having a plan. And so
Mhm.
that's the one where it's like, I don't recommend, because you have no plan. You have no idea what you're getting into. You have no idea how long it's going to take you. And, you might schedule it in 2 months and then later you realize, oh, I have to postpone. And then each time you postpone it, there's a fee, right? And that fee adds up.
Mhm.
And so that's why, like, I usually don't recommend it, but I really like how for some people they need that deadline, because that's what helps them to keep showing up and to keep studying. But
Mhm.
what I really liked about your approach is that you were like, okay, let me have a plan, gather all the information that I need, all the study material, and then you're like, "Oh, this is how long it's going to take me, therefore I'm going to schedule my exam." And then for you, Effie, worked out great. So I do recommend that, especially for students who do need that goal. I like that. I really like how you, on your second approach, when you came back from vacation and from the weddings, and in January when you started studying, it was more fun for you than the beginning. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people, they feel so stressed and overwhelmed during this whole FE journey. And I think it's it's better to approach it differently and to actually just enjoy the process, right? You are
Mhm.
spending that time studying anyways, might as well just enjoy it versus being miserable,
Mhm.
because you're just going to hate the whole process and it's going to be very stressful for you. And so if you are in that situation, try to change something, your study habits, or maybe your mindset, or maybe your approach, or maybe you schedule it too rigid, like you had, right? Your
Mhm.
schedule was too rigid and you're like, you know what, let me make this work for me, for my schedule. I like things to be more flexible. And then you started to enjoy the process more and have fun more with it, right? And so
Yes.
that's really important. So for those of you guys who are watching this, try, if you find yourself in that situation where you hate this journey, try to figure out, change something to make it more fun and enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
After all, we are learning engineering, right? And it's stuff that we are applying at work, and it's fun. A lot of us who go into engineering and we do 4 years of school, I'm sure we like some of the stuff we learned in school. We enjoy some, right? And so might as well just enjoy the whole process and enjoy learning engineering. I think that's really important. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Now, okay, so you got our courses. What were some of the things that you liked about our courses and you felt that it really helped you pass your FE exam?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing was that your videos were separated out. Like each problem had its own video, each solution, the lectures, and they weren't very long. So they were short and to the point. And I think having those short videos and to the point is much easier than watching like a 5-hour lecture. So that's the one downfall about EET. Now that I've done your course and now
Yeah.
I'm going to EET, I know it helps and it's been recommended and it's great so far, but it's like 2.5, or like I just got through econ last night and it was like a 3-hour video of just lecture and exercise problems. And then today I did the practice problems on my own. There were like 13 practice problems in the binder. And it's like, I miss doing it the way Kenza had it. So I do wish you had a PE course because I would have taken it for sure because I do like that setup versus I realized like, and I think that was my problem with school of PE because it was so long.
Yeah.
You start getting tired of just sitting there
Yeah.
watching and you get exhausted. It's like, so I think I'm going to have to approach this EET class differently,
Oh.
in the sense that watch some of the lecture, maybe pause it, come back to it, like, or get through a section, pause, kind of do one or two of those practice problems and then come back, because I don't think I could sit there and watch like a 5-hour or 3-hour lecture just and for it to keep my attention without me getting tired or like burnt out. So I really like that your
Yeah.
course had that where every video was sectioned out. They were short, simple. It was a lot easier to follow, and I didn't burn out.
Yeah. I mean, you got to adjust. We're just talking about that, right? Adjust and make it work for you, right? Um, but yeah, also another thing, like, I don't know if this happens to you, but when you watch a YouTube video, for example, and you see like the YouTube video is like an hour or 2 hours, you're like, oh damn, like I don't want, this is too long. I don't want to watch this.
Mhm.
Mentally, you feel like this is going to be a long video and it's going to require so much of my energy, right?
Yeah.
Versus like when you have short videos, you go, oh, 5 minutes, I can do 5 minutes. Oh, the
Yeah.
next video is only 3 minutes. I can push through, right? So it's like you play this trick with your brain where it's like, it's only 3 minutes. We can do this, right? But it's like you're learning so much through that 3 minutes and you're not even realizing it. Versus you're right, sitting through a 5-hour lecture, you're gonna lose a lot of people
Yeah.
after 30 minutes, because it's we're using our brain at 100% capacity. You during that full 3 hours, you're using it at, you have to pay attention. And so at some point, you're just gonna start getting really tired. And
Mhm.
it's definitely not sustainable. Okay, so after you got through our course, I'm actually really curious. Did you enjoy structures? Because I know you said at the beginning you didn't like structures, you never taken it. What was it like after going through the course?
Actually, it wasn't so bad when I went through your course and I actually learned, and I was like, oh, this is actually simpler than I thought. And the steel, equations, that whole section in the civil part of the reference manual that I was so intimidated by, I was like, oh, this is not that bad. I actually understand what all this means now. I just needed somebody to just quickly break it down, and you did
Yeah.
that. So I don't hate it anymore. I still
Good.
struggle with, like, for whatever reason, trusses and force members, for whatever reason, I still can't wrap my brain around that sometimes. I still sometimes get that wrong, but overall I do enjoy I enjoyed it, and it definitely helped a lot. So I really do think that it was your course that helped me pass this time. And also with adjusting how I,
Yeah.
studied, and I just was more consistent. I actually, approached it differently this time.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really great. And now you get to use that course again for the afternoon, like you mentioned earlier, using the afternoon course to study for your PE morning
Mhm.
section, which is really great. Um, okay, so the week, so you told us that you got sick 2 weeks before your exam, and then the week before that you were doing problems and stuff. And then I do remember we received an email from you. You were a bit stressed out. How did that go after that? Like just between that email and then your exam, were you able to like be like, okay, I got this, like get into a positive mindset? What was that like?
So yeah, so when I sent you that email, that was about 3 days before the exam. I think it was the weekend before the exam, because my exam was on a Monday. I think I sent that to you guys on Friday. And that was after taking a practice exam, and I was like, oh, I only got 40 something, 50 something percent or whatever. And that made me nervous. And then I talked to Rim and Bernita, and they were just like, don't get stuck on that number, because nobody really knows what the passing score rate is for the FE. Like, it's not, NCS doesn't clarify that, right? Or say that. So it could very much vary.
Mhm.
But so then after talking to them, that kind of helped a little bit, and they gave me some tips on time management. And like Bernita said, make sure you submit your first half of the exam by the on the clock when it says 2 hours and 50 minutes or something like that. Make sure don't take longer than this much time for the morning portion. um so keep an eye on that, because time management was a problem for me at that was my biggest struggle, I think. Um and then on the test day, I actually did submit the test 20 minutes later than what Pranita had said. But when I got to the afternoon portion, I finished 10 minutes early. So I submitted 10 minutes earlier, and I had time to go back and review. So having that, it made me feel good, and like not skipping too many problems. Like, yeah, I flagged some and I guessed on some. So I think overall I guessed on maybe 10, 15 problems of the whole test. Like, where I guess where I absolutely did not know how to attempt it, my brain was just like, I'm not even gonna try. This looks like a long problem. Well, let me do my best guess. Hopefully I'll get it right. So that's what I did. So I just had to accept that, I'm not gonna get this one. Let me just make the best educated guess and move forward. Instead of trying to, like, the engineer in me wants to solve every problem, but I just can't solve every problem. I had to accept that. So yeah, yeah, so that's what I did, and I did take the full 25-minute break during the exam to, like, unwind,
Mhm.
had snacks, had an apple or banana, whatever I had, water, recharged, and went back into the exam. So that definitely helped.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you had that strategy. You're right, because a lot of people they focus so much on getting every question, but we're not there to score 100%. We just want to pass this exam, right? That's the goal. If you had the whole day to solve that problem, then go ahead and have fun with it and try to solve every problem. But there's also time management, and you're not going to be able to solve every single problem. Um, how did you find your exam overall? Difficulty wise, did you find it difficult? Was it fair? Because you took the FE exam a couple times, right? When you
Yeah,
compare this exam to the previous ones, what did you feel like? It was
I thought it was fair.
okay.
And I it might just be that it was the same all across the board, but
Mm,
I think this time, because I was more prepared, it
yeah.
felt a little bit more fair, I guess, if that makes sense. But I did come out of it thinking very 50-50. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think I was confident and I passed. Like, because when I came out of it, I was like, oh, this could go either way. I didn't feel great about it, but I didn't feel completely horrible. Like, oh, yeah, I bombed that test. So, like, it was very like it could have went either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I knew coming out of it, I was like, okay, I gave it my all. I honestly did try 100%. I did everything. Now let's just hope I pass type of thing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way. I remember when I took my exam when I left, I was like, it could literally go either way. Either I pass or either I failed it really hard. So
Yeah.
it was like, I don't know. So yeah. Yeah.
Because there were some problems where I was solving it and I wasn't getting the answer that was on the multiple choice. I got, but
Mm,
I like A, B, C, or D. It wasn't any of those. And I'm like, shoot, but it's closest to like D. I'm gonna
mm,
choose that or whatever it was, but it wasn't exactly right. But I had to tell myself, okay, there are problems like this that NCS does that where it says, they kind of don't put the exact answer. They'll put something close to it. So I had to remember, okay, I may have the problem right. They just don't have my answer up there, but they have the closest one, and that is the correct one. So I had to adjust my thinking in that sense too.
yeah, that's interesting you brought that up. I actually noticed that too. When I looked at their practice exam, the NCS, a lot of times I plug in the number and I'm like, none of these answers is you guys multiple choice. You're out by like 20 or 30.
Yeah.
Right? Like which is, I mean, that's you round up or round down by 1 point or two, not like 20 or 40 or 50. So that's
Yeah.
really, especially in engineering economics, I noticed they do that a lot. So it's interesting you noticed that too. I noticed it, but I never said anything because I wasn't sure, if that was a
Yeah.
thing. But it's interesting you noticed it too. In your exam, did you have a lot of conceptual problems?
Not a lot, but
Okay.
I had a good amount, like
Okay.
not like I would say probably like maybe 10, maybe almost 15, maybe. Not like a lot, but there were enough on there where it was like, "Oh, okay." Compared to, like, when I first was taking the FEs and during my journey years ago, there weren't there weren't really conceptuals on there, you know? That had changed over time, and there were more than before, so, yeah. But I do think that your, courses and then having that conceptual exam, I only did one of the 2. And I did it kind of just to go through the problems, not as necessarily take it like a test, but I did go through them, answer all the questions, you know, and, I think that really did help a little bit. Like, I mean, there were so many conceptuals, it's like, chances are those same questions will be on the test. They're rare, but, um, yeah, I think it did give me a better idea of, like, okay, the type of problems I might get, and things of that sort. So, I thought that was very helpful. Because nobody really focuses on the conceptuals. They just do that, you're just told, just do a bunch of practice problems and then you'll pass. But it's not just about the practice problems. You have to know the concepts behind it. I
Yeah.
mean, anybody can plug the numbers into a calculator and get an answer. You have to know how to get there.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Especially like you said, now they have more and more conceptual problems. Like when I took my exam, I remember there were a lot of questions where I just had to grab the equation and plug in. And then I was like, really? Is this it? Like this feels like too easy. Like, is this a
Easy.
trick here? When I
Yeah.
took it in 2018. But now, like, I feel like it's really changed over the years. It's got harder and harder, more difficult. Questions are longer. You need to not just grab one equation, you might need two equations to be able to solve the problem. And then there's the conceptual, right? Conceptual questions that, like you said, not a lot of people talk about or really teach either.
Yeah.
And that's why we've been hearing from students that they get more and more, a lot more, like 20 to 30 conceptual questions, and we're like, you know what, let's create a practice exam, 110 questions, just all conceptual questions, just to help you guys, get ready for those type of questions. So, but I'm glad you found it helpful. We just launched it like a week, I think, or 2 weeks before your exam, right? Or a few
Yeah, it was
days,
like a few days,
few
so I
days,
got
right?
really lucky. So I just took it
Yeah,
over the weekend just for the heck of it, and
yeah,
I liked it.
yeah,
And so I
yeah.
think it helped.
That's awesome. All right, now, okay, so you got your results back. How did you feel during that moment when you saw that pass?
I think it was like 6 in the morning when the email came in
Oh,
that, "Oh, your results are in," or whatever, check. And I didn't see that email. I saw another email that had "Oh, you got the national badge," or something, and then I opened that email before my results email
oh,
because I was half awake, because results come out on Wednesdays. So I looked at it and I was like, "Wait, what is this?" And I was like, "Oh my god, did I pass?" I was like, "No, no, don't get your hopes up." Let's go back." And then I saw the email. I was like, "Let me go to the link. Let me open it." And then I saw it was green and it said pass, and I was like, I think I like hit my husband and I accidentally hit his face, and I was like, "Oh my god." I woke him up and I was like, "I passed. I passed the exam." And he was like, he freaked out because he thought something happened, and I was like, "No,
oh.
no, I passed the exam." Oh, it was so funny. So, yeah, that's how I found out, and then that very same day, I went and did my fingerprinting, I filled out my board's application, I was just like, "Send it all in. I just wanna be done with this. Like,
Yeah.
just wanna put this behind me."
Yeah, that's awesome. Did it impact your professional life, like your career, when you told at work, when you told them that you passed your FE?
I do get reimbursed since I passed, I do get reimbursed for that test and
Ooh,
all
okay.
my board applications and fingerprinting, so I submitted all that in. That was nice. Um, as far as getting a raise or anything, no, because for the FE, you don't nothing happens. It's
Okay.
after you pass the PE, so I still
Okay.
got a ways to go.
Yeah. Well, you're almost there. It looks like you already started studying for your PE. You scheduled it mid-August,
Yes.
right? We
Yes.
might have you back to our channel and you can share your PE experience. So,
Yeah.
you're almost there. But that's awesome. Now, if a student comes up to you and then asks you to list three things that really helped you pass your FE exam, what would you say to them?
I would say definitely being consistent. And consistent is different for everybody. Like
Yeah.
for me, it was flexibility. For some people, they need a rigid schedule, like, "Oh, I only am studying from 7 to 9 p.m. every day, or 5 to 7 a.m. every day." Whatever works for you works for you. For me, I didn't, sometimes I studied in the morning, sometimes in the evening. Sometimes it was midday when I had a slow day at work, or, I had some time in between. So it's whatever works for you, but whatever works for you, just as long as you're consistent. And I would say at least showing up 5 days a week, because sometimes you do need that break and you have to allow yourself that break, one day in between. Like maybe Wednesdays you don't study, like midweek, because it's like you're just, you don't want to burn yourself out. So whatever consistent looks for you, but I would say at least 5 days a week. If you can't get 7, some people have to do every day. For me, 5 to 7 was good. If I had a day off here and there, that worked for me because that's how I don't burn out. So that would be my first advice. Um, Second would be practice exams. That really helped me. That was the one thing I did different this time than all the other times I studied, is taking multiple practice exams and realizing what type of test taker I was.
Mm.
Realizing that I have a tendency to want to solve every single problem. I don't like skipping. I have to know the answer, you know, and being okay with, okay, the answer might not be on there, but I'm going to pick the closest one. Or I don't know how to do this problem. Let's skip it and come back to it. Let's keep moving through the rest of the exam. So, realizing what my strengths and weaknesses were as a test taker, I think really did help me with and especially with like time management, knowing what my weaknesses were and what was holding me back and making me take more time and wasting time, realizing that, I think that really did help. Um, and I think third would be just going into the exam not stressed out. Like
Mm.
the morning of, I think my exam was at 12 o'clock. So it wasn't early morning, which normally I'm a morning person. I wanted the 8 a.m. time slot. They didn't have it. I had 12 o'clock. I'm like, oh, 12 to 5, that's midday. I don't like that. But I was actually happy because I spent the morning, I went to the gym in the morning at 8 o'clock. I came back, had a really good breakfast. You know, I relaxed and I went into the test at ease, not like, oh my God, I have a test to take. The first thing I'm going to do is get up, brush my teeth, quickly grab a snack, and go to my exam. It was more like I got my full morning routine done, and that was nice, and went into the exam a little bit more relaxed. So I think that's important on the day of the exam, doing your normal routine and going into it. So, I mean, if you're going to schedule the exam and you see an 8 a.m. time slot and a 12 p.m. time slot or a 10 a.m. time slot, maybe pick a little bit of a later time than the first morning time slot. So you have some time to do your morning activities or meditate or relax or do whatever it is you have to do to like calm yourself down, calm your nerves down before you go into the exam.
Yeah, I love that. Exercising, the fact that you exercise before your test, that must have really helped with anxiety. Like,
Yeah.
that must have really helped. That's awesome. Okay, awesome. Well, Jasmine, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me today and sharing your FE journey. I know it's been a tough journey for you. You've been in this journey for quite some years now, but I'm really happy for you and congratulations on passing your FE exam. And thank you so much for sharing all your insights. I'm sure it's going to help so many people.
Thank you. Thank you so much.